Continuing my look into Starfleet vessels, I thought we could look at a slightly smaller ship than the last two, this time the diminutive Nova class Starship. The origin of the Nova in universe mirrors its IRL development and concept creation. The original premise for the vessel was much grander than its eventual final form. Before there was even a schematic, Starfleet, always innovating, was already considering a successor to the Galaxy class. The Galaxy, of course, was launched in 2357, with the majority of later ships in the early 60s, and it was to be the frontline explorer and face of the Federation, an ambitious project to follow. Work began on developing this new project in the 2360s, pretty much as soon as the Galaxy entered full production, and the class of Starship was to be the Nova. The original iterations featured radically different hull designs and experimentation with creating differing warp field geometry for more efficient travel, leading to some pretty unique shapes for a Starfleet vessel. However, problems arose in the development of the Nova class. Well, not exactly problems, just, well, you'll see. One of the early iterations involved nacelles that could be moved and angled to change the shape of a warp bubble in flight. This variable warp geometry system was a pretty solid idea and coincided with the discovery of warp-related subspace damage, which added another pivot to Starfleet's designs moving forwards. So, this new addition to propulsion was adopted by another ship class, the Intrepid, and the Intrepid's mission profile was for fast and consistent deep space travel to explore and research, very similar to the original Nova's envisioned purpose. Then, another early concept developed a space frame that was adopted by the Aquitaine class, and when it came to the role of replacing the Galaxy class, well, Starfleet's recent design changes, spurred on by the hostilities of the Borg and the development of newer warp bubble profiles, led to the penning of the Sovereign around the same time, which was one of the most advanced ship classes in the fleet and far better suited to the all-rounder roles that the Galaxy had embodied. So what did that mean for the Nova project? Well, it was left in a bit of a precarious state, as the original concepts were cannibalized by other ship projects of the time, and many of the technologies that would have made it unique were allocated to other ships, meaning the grander scope of replacing the Galaxy class was pretty much out of the window. Rather than shut down development, however, the Advanced Ship Design Bureau looked at what they had left of the Nova design brief and found a place for it as a science scout vessel, something that could replace the aged Oberth class, which was frequently encountering issues that it could not handle, even those it was designed for. However, the initial schematics for the Nova were generally far too large, so they began to look to their other projects and found what they were looking for in the Defiance development. While recent encounters with the Borg had accelerated and overhauled the Defiant, its original schematic was pushed aside and picked up by the Nova team, who adopted it for their new brief. The Defiant's Pathfinder, as it was known, featured an oversized and dedicated saucer section for torpedo launchers, and this was scrapped in favour of installing a sensor system in its place. In 2368, the first prototype for the Nova class was launched, now a very different vessel from its original purpose, and a very conservative design, the USS Nova NX 72230. The Nova class now was only 222 metres long and 8 decks tall, with a crew of around 80 souls. It weighed 110,000 tonnes, and although it was based on a frame made for a potential Defiant, it did not feature the oversized and overpowered warp core of that escort. Instead, it had a rather reserved LF-47 Advanced Linear Warp Drive System, which sounds flashy, but was only capable of Warp 8 and had a cruising speed of Warp 6. This was far less than its contemporaries, but a top-of-the-line Warp Drive was no longer needed because it was neither a rapid responder nor a deep space vessel. However, its armaments do hint at its origin somewhat, considering it had 11 Type 10 phaser arrays and the usual 3 torpedo launchers, 2 fore on the saucer section and 1 aft. The reason for so many arrays, however, is down to the placement on the saucer section, whereas ships like the Galaxy and Luna featured a massive phaser strip that ran around the contours of the saucer. The Nova's angular design broke up this profile into smaller emitters. That being said, each emitter was the same category as those vessels, so it did not lack for armaments. Again, this came out of prototyping alongside contemporaries like the Akira, Sovereign and Defiant, when Starfleet was beefing up its armaments. It did, however, feature a newer shield system that, although not able to draw on the raw power of bigger vessels, was able to be fully recharged in 45 seconds of downtime. Another interesting addition is the inclusion of a secondary deflector array on the saucer, which alongside the primary could operate as expected, but was there mostly to tie into other systems. The deflector has proven to be a useful and adaptable tool on starships, especially in the application of solving scientific quandaries, so a dedicated dish for that purpose was a good idea for a ship that would be encountering many strange phenomena. Additionally, it was tied into their oversized sensor system, allowing for much further scanning ranges. This gave it a secondary role as a good scout ship, despite its lack of speed. Its small size, too, made it one of the few vessels able to tolerate not only atmospheric flight, but also planetary landings, meaning this vessel also found a niche role as a planetary survey ship, and would occasionally even land planetside to act as a field base for science teams. Internally too, it had many dedicated science labs, and was one of the first vessels to be outfitted with the EMH program. In terms of auxiliary craft, it had only 2 shuttles and 2 worker bees, but also contained a Wave Rider class atmospheric shuttle slung under the saucer section where the captain's yacht would be on other ships. The ship entered true production over the next couple of years, and served its purpose well in its new role. The diminutive Nova did not have the resources or power on hand of other ships. However, it made do with what it had and worked smart with those systems. It's a far cry from the successor to the Galaxy class it was originally envisioned as, but its projects contributed to many other classes, even as its own was scaled back time and time again. What emerged was a replacement for Starfleet's working Oberth, and frankly one that is infinitely superior. Interestingly enough, however, in both an alternate 2404 seen in Voyager and in 2401 seen in Picard, the Nova was seen to operate in a tactical capacity, which, considering the class's frame was originally for a Defiant-like escort, it would not take a huge amount to gut the science systems and reinstall the tactical output that the frame was originally designed to hold. The potential USS Rhode Island is one such overhauled vessel that is a faster and more powerful refit of the Nova class, but whether or not it comes to pass remains to be seen in the Prime timeline. Thanks for watching this breakdown on the lore of the Nova class. While not the most powerful and certainly not the fastest ship, the Nova had a muddled start that ultimately produced a vessel for a role that Starfleet needed to fill, a long-awaited upgrade to their standard survey scout and science vessels. Plus they were running out of Oberths, let's face it. I've been Rick, thanks again for watching, Goodbye.